I'm coming to you from my basement in my husband's office in this time of quarantine. And I'm going to be talking today about chapters 24 through 26 in the book of Acts. And even though we can't be together physically right now in this time of quarantine, we can be together in spirit. And it's really good for us to be studying this amazing book of Acts and the emerging church. Because now we are being Cow, we are part of that church. We are the church. And so it's good to be studying this book together. So if you have not had a chance to read through those chapters 24 through 26, I would encourage you to take some time just to read them through and kind of catch up on where we are in this story. So in Acts 24, we kind of come on the scene knowing that Paul's been arrested. He's been arrested in the temple in Jerusalem. In 24, he's being moved by a Roman guard to Caesarea. And over these 3 chapters, we see him being given opportunity to give his defense to more audiences, and in a lot of ways being able to be taken up the chain of command, the Roman chain of command. He is given audiences now in front of Gentiles, 2 Roman governors, Felix and Festus of Palestine. He's able to give a defense on, as well as the king of Palestine at that time, which was King Agrippa. He's also he's imprisoned, or I would say under house arrest. We also find him having about 2 years that he's under house arrest through these different chapters between 2 of the Roman governors that are in power at that time. And so as I have been kind of reading through and reflecting on these chapters and putting myself in this story, right? Thinking of myself through the lens of Paul and really entering the story, there are 2 things that have really kind of come out to me, and they have to do with attitude and opportunity. And Paul's attitude in the face of these circumstances to me are very striking. So in chapter 24, when he is brought before Felix, who's the Roman governor at that time, not a just governor by any means. He was pretty corrupt. And the high priest Ananias kind of gives this big claim, or all the things that they have against Paul. And then Felix basically kind of calls Paul up to give his defense. And Paul, these are the words that really struck me in reading this. Paul said, "I cheerfully give my defense." And in another version I read, "I gladly give my defense." And I thought, wow, cheerfully, gladly. And I was thinking, would that be my response in the face of those circumstances, being imprisoned, having false claims against me? Paul had the ability to have an attitude that was beyond his circumstances. If we kind of fast forward to chapter 26, after this, so basically in chapter 26, Paul's been stuck in house arrest for 2 years. There's a totally new Roman governor that comes on the scene. He's kind of already met with him now, and then also King Agrippa is coming into the scene and kind of talking with Festus, and he's like, "Hey, I want to hear Paul. I have heard about the way. I'm familiar with these things. He's from a Jewish tradition." And Paul is brought before King Agrippa. And Paul starts off in giving his defense, and he says, "I am fortunate today to stand before you and give you my defense." And I think that, again, that attitude of, I'm fortunate, I'm eager to be here to give you my testimony. And in chapter 26, Paul lays out his testimony. He talks about his life as a Saul, all his credentials in his life before, the road to Damascus, having the life transforming meeting Jesus face to, eyes being blinded, but the transformational Damascus Road experience, and then his life as Paul, as one of the, members of this new church of the way, of wanting to spread the gospel of Jesus died, buried, and resurrected, this new life that kind of busts out all these other ways of his old life. And he just lays out his testimony. And so just Paul's attitude in the face of his circumstances and in having the 2 years, and I'm sure his attitude when he was probably preaching and talking to whatever guard he was with at that time, so that his attitude in the face of the circumstances really impacted me. The positive attitude he had, right? Almost like a grateful attitude. And the second thing that really struck me about Paul was just the opportunity that he saw. I think Paul came in with that vision and with that passion. He knew that this was greater than himself. This was greater than just his defense. This was the gospel. And he saw the opportunity set before him, and he just went at it. And I think there's a life in Paul outside of him, just his words and his defense, right? He just saw the opportunity because he was fueled by a life in him that called him outside of himself. And so these things really struck me. And I think that it struck me because we are in these times that they're just new for all of us. They're unprecedented. We haven't been here before. And we are holding in these times some really hard things going on that are really difficult. And probably each of us can name what they are for our family or for friends. And there's also some grateful things that we're grateful for during this time that we don't usually have space and time and opportunity to do things that maybe are the busyness of life before can kind of crowd out. And so there's opportunity for us in this time as well. So I guess my questions are, and the questions I've been asking myself, is what is the attitude that I'm bringing to my days? Am I bringing my attitude before God and asking Him to help me have that attitude of gratefulness? And I'm also asking, what is my opportunity? Because each of us have gifts and passions and a place in this story, right? Even though we're all isolated in our homes for a good reason and we're trying to do our part, we have a part in the story, and each of us have giftings and opportunities in that. And so what is your opportunity in this time? Just if we ask God, I think He is eager to show us, hey, maybe it's hanging out with your brother or sister and they're really driving you nuts, but maybe saying, you know what, I'm gonna sit down and play with them because that would mean a lot to them. Reaching out to somebody who might need encouragement, helping out your mom or dad, making a phone call to your grandma and grandpa. I don't know what those opportunities are, but I know God has placed those before us. And so I just want to leave you with, what is the attitude that you want to bring to this time? Because God wants to be there in that attitude with you. And what is the opportunity that He's placed before you?